Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nips every day to get some of that dirty YouTube money so I can afford to teach you folks classes in the real world. Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com, free D&D user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do. We just did a class on the OpenAI API in Durham, North Carolina on Wednesday. On November 5th, we're going to have a class on AI and databases. On November 19th, we're going to have a class on AI and web scraping. If you're interested in those, go to silicondojo.com to RSVP. Do remember, free the end user isn't actually free. There's a donor box link down below if you want to help me in my effort to actually educate people. And yeah, now we get into the stupidity of the day. It actually pays me. It actually pays me. Oh my God. I don't know. Is racism in vogue again? Can I do this joke without being canceled? I wonder if I can do this joke without being canceled. You want to try? You want to try? Sure, let's try this joke. Do these people think that we are stupid? I don't know what that is. That's racist on so many levels. That's just a smorgasbord of racism there. But I feel like in the world of Trump, it's allowed. I feel like in the world of Trump, it's allowed. Anyways, no, this is actually how dumb white people are. Where I'm sure the Chinese people are like, yeah, no, we got that. We got that. Anyway, so we have this whole disaster going on right now in Europe, right? Where Europe is being Trump's little fucking bitch-ass lapdog for some reason. And I do not understand why. Europe was supposed to be the counterbalance to the United States on the global stage. And instead, they're being fucking Europe. Again, whenever you hear me bitch and moan and complain and blow a snot bubble about Europe, you have to understand about how excited I was back in 2000, right? For the Euro and really the Europe coming together. I thought they were going to be a global counterbalance to us, and that was going to be great because you want a counterbalance that's kind of sort of like you. Right? India is a lot different than us. China is a lot different than us. So if you have that kind of counterbalance, right, it's nice, right? If the other strong power in the world is actually a lot like you, right, it just makes the arguments so much easier. So anyways, the reason I get so frustrated with Europe is, fuck, what the fuck is wrong with Jesus? Anyways, to prove, I don't know how independent they are or whatever. They're being Trump's little lapdogs right now. And the United States government, I feel like I have to put a differentiator in there. The government, not me. Anyways, the government has a really big thing with China. And apparently there's this company called WingTech. The CEO of WingTech has been a naughty man as far as our government is concerned. Why has he been a naughty man? Where is the evidence? Who knows? Look, this is the democracy, and we are your superiors. Ergo, you should believe whatever we tell you to believe because we told you to believe it. That's a real free-thinking man in the United States. So anyways, we have been informed that WingTech CEO is a bad person for whatever reason. WingTech purchased this company in the Netherlands called Nexperia back in like 2019. And basically, this company produces silicon, produces chips for automotive vehicles, right? Low cost, whatever, chips, mass produced, right? We're not talking about 2 nanometer, we're talking about like 50 nanometer type chips type of deal. And anyways, so for some reason, Europe decided to seize Nexperia. So basically, so the headquarters is in Europe. They do some manufacturing in Europe, but then everything gets packaged, at the very least, everything gets packaged in China. So there's this whole supply chain thing going on here. And so for whatever reason, the Netherlands went in and they seized the Nexperia headquarters. So yay, they have the headquarters. But then China, the Chinese government mandated that the Nexperia factories in China can no longer send the finished goods to Europe. So basically, Nexperia was seized under national security policy because they believe that the Chinese government might screw with the auto industry. But by seizing Nexperia, the Chinese government is now fucking with their auto policy or auto industry. Anyways, one of the bigger issues with all of this is, for some reason, I don't understand. Like, when we talk about China, it's like it's so in a bubble. It's like China's this bubble. China's this bubble. All we have to do is we just gotta put like this bubble around China, and we can like contain China, right? That's one of the big things. Like, and you've heard this from the Obama administration, militarily contain China. Again, under the Democrats, right? There was something called the TPP. It's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was so fucked up. Again, and this was under the Obama administration, right? So what the TPP was, it was supposed to be a free trade zone for the Pacific, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The thing is, we would not allow China to become one of the founding members of the TPP because we wanted to create it under our auspices, basically designed for our benefit. Because we would be dealing with, right, lower power countries. We would be dealing with the Philippines. We would be dealing with Malaysia. We'd be dealing with South Korea, right? So they're much smaller than us. So basically, we would create this free trade zone, right? This free trade zone would be basically under our rules because we are the dominant power. Then after it has been created, they literally the fucking Democrats literally stated this shit, which is like, anyways, then after this is created, then we would allow China to join, so that they would be forced to work under the framework that we had already created, right? And this is the same horse crap that has been going on. Like, there is this weird idea in the United States, and there's this weird idea in the quote-unquote Western world, that you can somehow contain China. It's not that you can debate and argue with the Chinese people in order to shift how they're going about things, right? Hey, let's put arguments on the table about why it's beneficial to shift your civilization in a particular direction that aligns with our worldview, right? The big thing to understand now, again, we saw this out of the Democrats after they won with Obama, is you don't argue anymore. You don't argue anymore. You don't debate anymore. You don't have to explain shit anymore. You are the right side of history, and anybody who disagrees with you is a fucking deplorable. And so that's the issue that we have right now with China, is it's these heavy-handed policies. We are right. We are pure. We are godly. They are mongrel. And they should be begging us for us to, I don't know, condone them or whatever else. And it's just getting into these fucking insane policies. And it's not seeing the Chinese as a people. Again, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's interesting when I do these videos and people get so shitty about like Chinese people. Those people don't invent. Those people don't X. Those people don't Y. They are people. Even if at this point in the civilizational growth, or the past decade of civilizational growth, there's been a lot of copying and things. They are people. They are smart. They are motivated. They are disciplined. They have hopes and needs and wants and dreams. They have lived experience. They have cultural baggage. They have all of that crap, right? And so the thing is, if we do not see the Chinese people as a people that are part of a nation state and start interacting with them as people, there is going to start to be more and more dipshittery, right? And so that is what we're seeing now, right? Because the Europeans are pissant little fucking lapdogs that are shitting over themselves because they know they can't fucking defend themselves, right? I talked about this before with NATO, right? I have said the United States has needed to get out of NATO since 1995. As soon as the Warsaw Pact fell, we should have been disengaging from NATO. NATO was about the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact goes away. NATO should go away, right? But Europe is so fucking pathetic. They know that if the United States goes away, there's a good chance they're going to go back to murdering each other, right? The idea of a coherent European-centric military is so beyond these racist pieces of shit that they need us to be there. We have to be there. I have talked with Europeans and I have said we should get out of NATO, we should leave, and they literally tell me I am selfish. How dare you be so selfish to want your soldiers to go home? What the fuck? Right? This isn't their version of Fox News, their version of MSNBC. This is where I'm drinking a beer at a bar going, oh my God. I thought these people were smart. Aren't these people supposed to be more educated than me? What the fuck is this? Anyways, right? But again, since they're fucking pissant lapdogs of the United States, and again, every fucking European that's watching this, I want you to understand how much we fucking mock you castrated pieces of shit. Isn't it fucking hilarious that apparently you motherfuckers haven't birthed the real man the past 100 years? How much of a joke is it that your adult males fucking hide behind the hemlines of our women who are willing to defend your country that you're not willing to defend yourself? And maybe if I keep insulting you dumb shits enough, you're gonna get so fucking mad, you're gonna throw Americans out of Europe. And you're gonna come up with a fucking coherent policy for Europe and a coherent military strategy. And you're gonna come together to be the Europe we all fucking need you to be. I'll come here, I promise. I will come here every day to laugh at Europeans, if that is what's required to get Europeans to get their shit together. Anyways, that's its own screaming match. So the problem is, since there are fucking lapdogs, right? There are little fucking castrated bitches whose balls haven't dropped. Here's a question for you. When you see a European male, is it that they're castrated or that their balls haven't dropped? Inquiring minds want to know. Yeah. Tell our soldiers to go home, please. Anyways, so you got Europe. Right, they're being our little lapdog. The issue is, right, is you got Chinese people, right? The Chinese people are people too. Hopes, dreams, wants, whole 9 yards. And so the issue is, now that Europe has been willing to seize a Chinese company under horseshit auspices, right? Whatever the legal framework is, that's the problem we get in with the legal, like, well, legally, yeah, it's still horseshit, right? Under horseshit auspices, the question then becomes, for Chinese investors, right? Chinese people who want to put money into an asset, see the value of the asset go up so they can sell at that higher value, they're now looking at Chinese companies that have a risk in Europe, right? The systemic risk of the racist whitey is a real fucking consideration now in 2025, right? How much risk is a Chinese company under because whitey might do something stupid? And so now the value of a lot of these Chinese companies that have the risk of being in Europe are now going down significantly, and the Chinese investors want to understand from the executives of these Chinese companies, what are they doing to mitigate the risk of whitey, right? So this is coming from, wherever the hell it's coming from, one of these news sources. Nexperia seizure. Chinese investors grill companies with European units after Dutch move. Investors have asked at least 7 companies listed on Shanghai and Shenzhen about risks stemming from their European units. What are your structural risks to whitey? And this, as I keep trying to explain to people, this is where the shit starts fucking sliding. I talk about that when we had our biblical flood here in Asheville and things were weird, right? So we had a flood, and the flood is a thing you normally think about. Okay, anybody by the river, they got screwed, right? But the other issue we had is that I guess our mountains are mostly stone, like granite or whatever, and most of the dirt on the stone is only about 6 feet deep. So we had so much rain that the rain penetrated all the way down to the stone. Once it hit the stone, it actually created a slick mud layer, and then entire mountain sides just came down. So the house that was up on the mountain looking at the poor bastards down in the river, like, oh, thank God, that's why we didn't buy a river house. Yeah, all of a sudden they became a river house. And that's one of the things I talk about, like with disasters, is when disasters really happen, shit slides in weird ways, right? There's the known knowns and the known unknowns, as Donald Rumsfeld said way back in the day, and there are the unknowns. What are the unknowns that you didn't even think about? What happens when Chinese investors stop investing in the West? There are many companies in the Western world, right, that have not been doing good over the past couple of decades. A lot of money goes out from the Western world into China. They get money, they have money in banks. Nobody just wants to have their money in a bank. They want to put their money into investments. And so then there's the outflow from China to go invest into companies basically all around the world, right? And this is, I don't know if it's a virtuous cycle, but it's a cycle that we've been having, right? What happens if that stops? What happens if it is seen by the Chinese people that investing in the white world, essentially, is too much of a risk? What does that do to our factories? What does that do to our reshoring? What does that do to so many things? Chinese investors are grilling listed companies with European exposure after the Dutch government seized management control of Nexperia from its Chinese owner Wingtech Technology in a sign that public trust in European business ties is being undermined. Right? At least 7 companies listed in Shanghai and Shenzhen have been publicly asked by investors about risks stemming from their investments and operations in the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Germany, France, and Italy. The souring sentiment is a byproduct of a deepening dispute between China and the Netherlands over Nexperia after Dutch authorities took control of Jetmaker's management, citing national security concerns, and ousted CEO Zhang Zhuiheng. In response, Beijing banned Nexperia's Chinese units from exporting their products. Shares of Shanghai-listed Wingtech have dropped roughly 12% this month, while companies with plans to acquire European tech assets have come under scrutiny. So again, imagine this for European tech companies, right? You thought you were going to get an exit. You thought, again, in these weird economic times, you were going to be able to offload one of the components of your company to be able to get money in. So basically you could batten down the component of your company where you think you have the actual value. All of a sudden, the Chinese investors like, we're not sure we can trust you anymore. And they have a very legitimate reason to not be sure. Suzhou-based chipmaker China Wafer Level CSP, which acquired Dutch optical component maker Antron in 2019, was questioned last week by an investor over whether Antron would face similar risks, right? WLCSP, the wafer company, responded that its Dutch subsidiary was, quote, operating normally, but its stock has declined by more than 10% this month. The risk premium on dealing with the risk of dealing with Europe apparently is about 10%. Xiamen-based Sinan Optoelectronics recently announced a plan to acquire Dutch LED developer Lumi LEDs and told investors last week that the deal would, quote, further enhance the company's global market recognition and competitiveness. However, the Shanghai-listed shares of Sanan are down more than 9% so far this month. The Chinese concerns have extended to countries beyond the Netherlands. Shanghai-listed Techmation and Shenzhen-listed DBG Technology, which own assets in Italy and France respectively, as well as Zhaozheng Defu Technology, which has yet to conclude its takeover of Circuit Foil Luxembourg, faced similar questions. Suzhou-based industrial automation provider Robotechnic Intelligent Technology assured shareholders of its positive connection with German subsidiary Ficon Tech, quote, the long-standing positive collaboration and interaction between the Chinese and German teams have fostered a strong sense of cohesion, the company said on the question and answer channel of the Shenzhen Bourse. But here's the thing, right? Okay, the companies are working well together. What if the German government decides to do something stupid, right? Because again, one of the things you notice globally, again in the Western world, is the rise of the right-wing political parties. And so again, the right-wing political parties, again, I hate to say, but anyways, it's more isolationist, it's more anti-immigrant, it's more that type of thing. So if more of the quote-unquote right-wing parties win elections in Germany, it might become ever more difficult for Chinese companies to be able to operate in Germany. And so again, that's another risk for these Chinese companies. And a phone call on Tuesday, Chinese Minister of Commerce Wang Wentao asked Dutch Minister of Economic Affairs Vincent Kieremans to, quote, promptly and properly resolve the issue and protect the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese investors, according to a statement issued by the Chinese side after the call, which it said was held at the request of the Dutch. So yeah, so yeah, things are sliding. Things are sliding in the economic kerfuffle of 2025. It starts with a tariff, it goes to rare earths, it then ends up in seizing a company. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on currently between between the Western world and China, and because Europe fucking refuses to put their goddamn big boy pants on fucking ever. They're just going along with our idiotic policy, and so we are just going to go further and further into whatever is currently happening. And as I've said, with all this policy, again, with TDS or whatever, here's the thing, right? There's policy. There's isolation versus globalization and the whole 9 yards. This is trying to unwind systems that have been built up over 30 years, right? The work of China to get into the World Trade Organization in the early 2000s, right? That took 10 years or more. They've been in the WTO now for about 25 years. So again, we're talking about 35 years of systems that have been built up. And we talk about systems, like a lot of times we talk about things like supply chains, right? So supply chains and factories, that's something that people, it's very easy for people to understand. People are very comfortable with. I don't know, lathes. Everybody can get behind a good lathe for some reason. Whereas we talk about money, people get really weird about money, like, oh, money, right? But money is just part of the system, right? Just like you need a networking cable to build a network, just like you need access points, just like you need that kind of stuff. You need the money to flow, right? And there are people out there whose job is to make sure money goes from point A to point B and figure out how all those mechanisms work. So I had a buddy years ago, it was actually really interesting, right? To think about how financial people actually work and what this stuff means, is he was creating a financial instrument for basically allowing companies to invest in energy efficient technology in a cost-effective way. So the big problem with a lot of these companies is that over time, energy-efficient technology, the return on investment is just wonderful. It is just completely wonderful, right? Improving HVAC systems, installing LED light bulbs, putting in insulation, changing out windows. Like there's no technical downside to any of this, right? The issue is for companies, right? They're looking at their quarterly statements, they're looking at their yearly statements, they're looking at that kind of thing. And so the issue is to invest heavily into creating a more environmentally friendly company, right? Installing these systems, right? It'll cost like millions of dollars, right? It's you invest $5 million now, you recoup your investment within 10 years, and then everything past that is just gravy. It just simply costs less for your company to run after that. The problem is though, you have to put $5 million down right now, and that's what a lot of companies simply refuse to do. So he was actually trying to create this financial vehicle, and the idea would be is that it was this weird thing. It was like his company would get investment. With that investment, his company would come to an agreement with your corporation. They would come into your corporation, and then they would retrofit your corporation with the HVAC and the LED lights and all of those things to have more efficient systems. And then the corporation would come back and give a monthly payment on basically all of that stuff that you installed. And then the investors, they get their percent, or they get their 10% year return. So everybody is kind of happy, right? So the system, you get better systems in place. The company that gets the better systems only has to pay a monthly payment, which is a hell of a lot easier to swallow than one big $5 million lump payment. You get investors to pay for all the installation and everything, and there's an additional profit on top of that, so it makes the investors happy, right? That's a financial vehicle. That is the kind of thing that money people do. They figure out how to move money around and how to create contracts and agreements in such a way to actually make the system function, right? I've talked about this before with things like Marlin. I don't know if Marlin Leasing is still around. I don't know if it's still good. 17 years ago, Marlin Leasing was wonderful, right? Marlin Leasing, I've talked about them before. We sold leases for some of our projects that we installed. So again, you go in, it's a $20,000 project. The company doesn't want to lay down $20,000. It's like, oh, you can do a Marlin lease. What happens? We get an agreement with Marlin Leasing. As soon as the customer signs the contract, we get half. So if it's a $20,000 project, we get $10,000 up front. We install the equipment, we do everything. We get the person to sign off that we installed the equipment. We get the other half. We walk away with our $20,000. Then the company has a 3-year lease with a $1 buyout. So every month, so basically Marlin now owns all of the hardware that we installed. The company then pays a monthly lease. It's a lease. So they don't pay taxes on the equipment, and it all gets to get written off. And then after 3 years, at that point in time, there's a 3-year depreciation cycle. So at the end of the 3 years, all the equipment was supposedly worthless, and so Marlin just sells it all to them for $1. And again, that's a financial way. Look, we need a surveillance system. We have a security problem in our facility, but we can't outlay $20,000, right? The money people come in to make all that stuff work out, right? And that's one of the big concerns right now with all the dipshittery going on between the United States and China is there's so much focus on the stuff that we think we can understand, that we like talking about. Like, we like talking about factories. We like talking about supply chains. We like rare earths. For some reason, like, we feel like rare earths that's a topic we can argue about. The issue is, and really the more significant issue, is how money flows. Man, we're so weird. Even in the United States, it's weird. Like our entire economic system is around capitalism, but we don't really like to talk about money. Think about this. Like Obama. Obama literally came up with a grant program. So people who graduate with a bachelor's degree, they would get grants to go to coding boot camps. Right? The idea was everybody needed to learn to code. But the weird part is, in a capitalist society, most of our adults don't even really understand how the stock market works. Commodities and shorting and investment. Like, think about it. Everybody needs to know how to do a fucking Python function for some reason. Nobody needs to actually understand how the retirement fund works. And this is where I talk about our system is fracturing. Our system is literally failing at this point. It can be fixed. Like, this, it's not too hard, but it is, right? So the issue that we have right now is so much of the argument when we're talking about China, so much of the argument is on the stuff we feel like we can get our mental, our brain hands around. We feel like we understand that, rare earths or whatever else. And the bigger concern is what systems are failing that we either only tangentially understand, or that we just don't really like thinking about a lot. Right? How many American workers have jobs because of Chinese investment? Right? Like, it's really easy to talk about, oh, tariff. Any vehicle that comes in from the outside, tariff that. But what about the investments that come in from the outside? How many people in the United States have jobs because their suppliers have investments? That's a big concern here. And so again, you have a country of 1.4 billion people. You have the second largest economy in the world. You have all of this stuff going on. What happens when the Chinese like investing in the outside world just starts to seem a bit too dangerous? So anyways, there we go. Good job, Europeans. Good job, Europeans. Oh, some days I'm like, I don't know, maybe the Europeans are superior to us. And then I look at the news. I'm like, no, they're not. They just aren't. So what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Are you a European? Are you really mad about all the things that I've said today? Are you so mad you're gonna tell Yankee to go the fuck home? Yes, the answer is yes. God damn it. See, I try to be a Buddhist. That's the whole thing with Buddhists, right? What is the greater kindness? You try to be nice, and you try to be polite, and you try to acquiesce. But sometimes you just need to insult the motherfucker to get them to get off their damn ass. I don't know. Dear Europeans, you're such a fucking disappointment. Anyway, so what do you think about this? What do you think about the follow-on effects? The follow-on effects of the Netherlands seizing Nexperia. What do you think about this? Again, with the whole idea of, Chinese, like what happens when the Chinese are not welcomed around the world? Right? Like there's this whole thing about, like the Chinese government tries to keep the Chinese people. But we had this, with Trump. Trump tried to kick out 230,000 Chinese students. Basically said any Chinese student in the United States was considered a threat to the United States. Right? You have that. You have the seizure of investments. Again, you have the question of like, what's going to come next? What happens when the Chinese people legitimately see the outside world as a threat? Anyways, we're going to find out. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the next episode of Eli the Computer Guy's Highway to Hell. Grab your beer, your whiskey, or whatever intoxicant you like, because it is going to be a hell of a ride. Anyways, put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just be a real nutnik and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember, my real pride and joy is silicondojo.com. Silicon Dojo, authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to use your hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. Just had a class in the OpenAI API on November 5th. We're going to have a class on AI and SQL databases. On November 19th, we're going to have a class on web scraping with AI. We're going to have more and more classes. If you're interested, go to silicondojo.com. Do remember, free to the end user is not actually free. There's a donor box link down below if you want to throw some money in to help support what I do. And with that, see y'all later.